Okay, Megavan, and welcome back to another My Thoughts video. Um, so I guess it's it's this is going to be my comparison to Witcher 3 versus Skyrim. You know, and I know I kind of hate to use that word versus, but I mean, I guess that's really the only way I can put it. And I really don't like to have to use that word because I do like both games. It's just one game I love, I absolutely love, and the other one I like a lot. I really like a lot. Okay, so I guess I'll start off with Witcher 3. I beat this game. I beat both games. You know, for Skyrim, I beat that game, completed it. You know, going through the story and doing various side quests and stuff. Like maybe like a few times now already, 3 maybe 4 times. Witcher, I completed it one time, the main story, and Hearts and Stone, I think it's called, the first DLC, and I played through that and beat that, and then I'm still at the, I guess, middle beginning of Blood and Wine, you know, the second and I guess the last expansion, and I think Hearts and Stone is expansion also. Well, usually, you know, when I try to do these kind of videos or any kind of videos, my thoughts are kind of scattered. So I thought I'll try to you know, put some kind of structure to it, like a format. So I guess we'll start off, you know, kind of cut right through the chase. And I tend to babble, so that's, you know, forgive me for that, but I'll try to, you know, stay to the point. I really wish I still had this game installed so I wouldn't have to just show footage when comparing it, and then I might jump into Skyrim so you can kind of see more of what I'm talking about. But I guess we'll start off, or maybe I should preface first, both are, you know, massive RPGs, you know, single player RPGs. A lot of lore and customization, I'll say, but I feel that one has a bit more character customization than the other. And great story, although I'll say one has a much richer, I guess, and more involving story, almost cinema quality story, whereas the other one is just merely good to maybe very good. So, I mean, not even really great, just maybe, you know, very good at best. So I guess we'll start off with The Witcher 3. When it comes to character creation, you know, I think that, you know, it's very limited because you are forced to have to play this man, you know, Geralt. You don't pick your class, you don't pick your race, you don't pick your gender. You have to play as Geralt of Rivia. You have no choice. So that is kind of out the window. So now we can, you know, let's move on to Skyrim. In that game, the character creation is far more robust when compared to Witcher. Not as robust as something like maybe Daggerfall or, you know, Morrowind even. You know, you can pick, like in Daggerfall, your strengths and weaknesses and stuff. But in Skyrim, you can at least, you know, pick your gender, pick your race, right? And as for your character class, that's something that's sort of ongoing. You can kind of create your class sort of along the way, and it's up to you to stick to it, to stick to, you know, the kind of character you're playing. And I guess I can kind of go more into that, you know, what I mean. And really, it can also be governed by your standing stone birth sign. You pick like the thief, you pick the warrior, you pick the mage or the apprentice. That can help kind of guide you towards sticking to your class, or it helps govern your kind of character class. So in a sense, you have a character class that you assign, and then of course you name your character, which is great. So it's and you design the face and everything, the body and everything. You really customize your character. So I really love that about Skyrim. Now, actually going more into it, now people might say that, well, you can pick any character, or you can, you don't technically have a class that you pick, but it's, how you play the game. The game doesn't limit you from anything, right? But I say this, you set your own limits, So unlike something like Daggerfall, where you can set restrictions, in here you can kind of set those restrictions, yourself, and adhere to it. Now, if you don't do that, you're just too tempted to say you're playing a warrior who knows no magic. You're just a warrior. You're not magically inclined in any way. You're just like an Edagoran or a Conan the Barbarian. No magic. But you decide to, well, I'll just heal just this one time, and then you start doing it more and more, casting heal. That's your problem. That's your fault. You didn't have to do that. You shouldn't have done that. That's your fault. If you can't adhere to your class that you made for yourself, that you kind of planned out, and you break off from it, you're playing a mage, and then suddenly you're wearing heavy armor because you broke off from that because you started off wearing robes, but you decided, I'm gonna wear armor. That's your fault, okay? So that's your problem, So you shouldn't, you need to have the fortitude to stick to your class. If you're playing a thief who doesn't kill, then don't kill. Just run away from fights, hide. Maybe knock them out somehow, knock them down, paralyze them, and run away and steal. You're just playing a thief. If you're playing an assassin, then of course you can kill, whoever. Now, like in Witcher, when it comes to the kind of class, like I said, you don't have any choice in that matter. You have to play as Geralt. You have to play the role of you have to play the class of the Witcher class, and you have like kind of limited magic. You're just casting signs, really. You're not hurling fireballs or anything like that. So be prepared for that. If you're going to play Witcher or whichever one you decide. Like I said, I really like both games a lot. They're both great, but I favor one a little bit more. Now, when it comes to story, this is where Witcher really shines, and it really wins here. The story is impeccable. It's superb. Superb writing, great story. Sometimes I feel it's a little too deep. There's a lot of like the political crap that goes on, and there's a king before this king and that, and sometimes it gets a little bit too much, and for me it can get a bit too heavy for me. But for you guys, maybe you're okay with that, and for me sometimes I get confused. I lose track of what are you talking about, and sometimes during the cutscenes, I kind of zone out, but the story I get it, but there are certain things, certain times where it kind of loses me a little bit. But I can tell it's very deep, a lot of stuff to read, and it has a lot of lore. That's pretty much the same, both Skyrim and Witcher 3. It has great lore, for both of them. But the story, is immaculate in The Witcher 3. The downfall to that, though, is because the writing is so great, it relies on a lot of cutscenes. Therefore, it's really story driven. You'll notice when you play it, or for those people who have already played it, like as you can see, look what's going on. when it goes into like a little cutscene when you have a conversation with someone, you know, or you walk into like an instance where it's like a cutscene, you know, instance, and you have to kind of sit through it. What seems to be 15, 20 minutes long sometimes, it seems like you're sitting there just watching it, and you have to, you know, it goes through like you're watching a movie. So it starts to become like you're no longer playing the game is playing you. You know, I don't like that. Skyrim, you know, because it's not so story it's story driven, but it's not it doesn't lock you into that. You craft your own story, you know. In Skyrim, you know, it's, you know, about the dragons and Alduin. It's you can understand it, you know, a lot more easily. Not that it's like a super dumb story, or, you know, it takes someone who's, you know, you don't have like a high enough intellect to understand Witcher 3. It's sometimes it can get a bit too much, and I feel like with Witcher 3 it doesn't have to be. Skyrim has a moderately, you know, a moderate level of a difficulty of understanding the story. You know, it's a civil war. It's both are adult oriented. Of course, you know, you got the side thing with the civil war between the Stormcloaks and the Imperials. So you got all that. So it does have that political intrigue too, but it makes it fun in a way that it's not too, oh, now we've got to go through another cutscene, and you're no longer in control. You'll notice with this game it feels like you're moving around, like, as you can see, this perspective in third person, just from, you know, point A to point B to place, just to run into a cutscene and watch it for about 20 minutes or so, and you know, and you can't really control that. You know, they do these timed instances where you can make a decision, and you have, you know, you can see the progress bar thing, or the time bar, you know, depleting, and you have to make your decision, otherwise it will randomly pick for you, something like that. But in Skyrim, it doesn't have anything like that. See, it doesn't go into a separate cutscene. You know, it kind of like talks all in real time, you know. But overall, when it comes to story, I feel The Witcher comes out the winner, and that can be a very big deal to a lot of people, is the story. If the story's not good, then the game's like, it sucks. It's not good. So for a lot of folks, the story is a big deal, you know, and that's why a lot of folks can gravitate towards that more. But again, like I said, there are drawbacks to that, because you know, you're no longer in control. You're more like if you're watching a Let's Play, right? Like me doing this Let's Play, you're watching it. You're a spectator watching a Witcher Let's Play, watching the cutscenes. Well, guess what? I'm playing the game too. I'm a spectator too. I'm a spectator just like you. I'm watching just like you. You know, just like right now, I'm watching this. I'm not playing it. I'm watching it like a movie. And this can go on for like a long ass time. Maybe it's not really that long. Maybe it's really only 5-10 minutes, but it drags, and it feels like it's 20-30 minutes long. You know, it feels super long. A lot of times, because it goes from one cutscene, then you play like for 5 minutes, and it leads into like another long ass cutscene, and then you have no choice but to just sit through it. But again, the story is a much better story. Just be prepared to being more of a spectator than player. Now Skyrim has all this freedom, so you can carve your own story. So same thing, basically the same thing. You go from point A to point B to point C, you know, whatever. You're going from section to section, going to different parts of, you know, the main story, or whatever quest you're on, you know, going through it. But there are a lot of little things that can happen along the way. It's not really like that with Witcher 3. And like I said, I'm going by my experiences with the games. I've played Witcher 3, and I have noticed that I'm just kind of going from point A to point B to point C. There's really not much happening in between that's fun. I think they're like bounty quests, but in Skyrim you have bounty quests as well, and you can do like other things. You can, how do I put this? Unplanned for things, unscripted things. It's due to the Radiant AI. That they have. Sometimes it can be a little glitchy, but most of that has been fixed. I feel, because with the unofficial patch, and it keeps updating, and all the little patches that come along. So a lot of that is minimized, but sometimes there's a little weird thing that can happen, and you can just kind of chalk that up to, you can integrate that into your role play, and it works out. So that's what I love about with Skyrim. It's the little stories that happen in between going from point A to point B to C. Things like that. The combat now, I think the combat sucks in Witcher 3. I'm sorry. It's it almost it goes into its own mode. You got adventure mode, running around. Then the moment you get into combat, it switches to a different mode, and you're in this stance, and you're moving backwards. And it goes into its own. It has almost like its own separate controls. It feels like it, right? And in Skyrim, it's very organic. You stumble into combat. You can pull out your sword and shield, or your hands to cast spells, whatever, and you can just sheathe your sword and run away, or run away as you're sheathing your sword and get out of combat. You're making more use of the battleground, the area in the world. So say I'm a thief, an archer that excels at stealth shots, stealth kills, and lurking in the shadows. I stumble upon an enemy. Let's just say it's like dusk, so there's some shadows, that are being casted in the forest and buildings and stuff like that. And I stumble into a battle, and they see me, so I don't have the advantage, because I'm stealth kills is my bag. I can let off a few arrows if I like, then run away, and they can give chase, and then I duck down and sneak. Now I'm hiding in the shadows. They don't see me, and I even ran a very great distance. I ran to like a little abandoned town or something, and from the shadows I pick off a few more bandits. Then they finally spot me. I get up and I run totally even more further away from my original point that I was, where the combat was first initiated, and I go right into the forests, and I'm hiding, behind the trees, and I pick off the rest of them. I can cover more ground from, where the combat initially began. I'm making use of the whole world. It's very organic, like the real world. Like if you're watching Lord of the Rings, Conan, or let's just take something like a modern day flick like Die Hard, or something a bit more where it's like you're I don't know, Lethal Weapon. When there's a car chase, it covers all this ground, driving around, chasing a car chase scene. In Witcher, you're never really gonna have to move far away somewhere. It's like consolidated within that area, and it's all the same. You roll, you put up your Kyun, or whatever, your shield, if you like, and then you just swing your sword, or do that spin whirlwind thing. You cast the Igni, the fire, because you're like something like a spell sword, and you have no choice. You can't be a full-blown sorceress. Like I want to be like Yennefer or Triss, being able to cast mighty fireballs and smite my enemies from afar. But you can't do that. When I first played this game, I was looking for that, and the skills. I was like, what the, getting familiar with my shit, and I was thinking, is there a way I can build it so I can? And sadly, I found out I could not. Now when it comes to character leveling and character building, surprisingly, I would say it's equal in terms of I remember this fight, in terms of how it's structured, how you distribute your points and stuff. You know, you kind of have like, if I remember, some sort of like skill tree thing where you can put it in your like your melee stuff, like whirlwind attack or power attack, or put it into your signs ability, or I think there was like range or something, I can't remember, but you had different categories, and you can choose, and it branches off from there, right? And then you slot different mutagens and stuff, so that's really cool. You can customize your character in that way. Skyrim is very much the same in that, you know, how it's structured, you know, with you go into the constellations, and you have the different categories, and you put your points into whatever, you know, skills you want. Where it excels at is you're not just limited to a Witcher class. You can be a sorcerer, a rogue, like I said before, a necromancer, a bard, whatever, especially when you're playing with mods, is what I'm talking about. It opens up all this great stuff. You have more choices in your class, but we're not talking about the classes, we're talking about the how you level up. So it doesn't matter whatever class you pick, you know, but in terms of when it comes to leveling up and the distribution of the points, it's pretty much the same, you know. So it's about equal there, the way you level up your character, aside from being able to have multiple classes in Skyrim. You know, disregard that part of it, just the way you level up. What else is there? There was something else I wanted to bring up, and it was hold on. Okay, well, I can't think of I can't remember what it was, what I was going to say, but we'll go to the next category, and that's the journal keeping. You know, this is an example of the excuse me, the journal, and you have, you know, your quest log, and you have a bestiary. You know, this is vastly superior to what Skyrim has. Skyrim, it's not very good. The journal keeping in that. You just have, you know, you go into your journal, to your quest log, and you just have, for the main ones, it's not so bad. You have like a paragraph you can read about it, and then you got the bullet points. But when it comes to maybe the smaller quests, and especially the miscellaneous quests, they just give you these bullet points. You cannot click on them to expand it and read about it, at least like a few sentences or a small paragraph. You don't get that. In here, this is super robust, you know, the way the journal keeping is, and I absolutely love that. This is reminiscent to something like maybe a Morrowind or Oblivion, but this is even more so, I would say. It's still even more in-depth than those, because you have the bestiary and the codexes and stuff like that. But, you know, even with Oblivion and Morrowind, those are still a lot better journal keeping than what Skyrim has to offer. It's just, it's not, it's at least you have one, but it's not that great. And I wish there was a way to fix that, but I see no way that you know, you can really mod that unless someone actually takes the time to go through every single friggin' quest that you get in the miscellaneous you know, section, and detail everything. It would just be too much. So here, you know, the journal keeping and bestiary and codex and everything, all that stuff is vastly superior. So it's got the story, it's got, you know, the journal keeping, codex and record keeping and everything. Those two things alone are vastly superior to Skyrim, you know. What else can I bring up? And you know what? Okay, and I guess lastly is just freedom. You know, the freedom to do whatever you want. In here, everything seems to be very linear. You know, you stumble upon a cutscene, you know, it's going to be the same cutscene that you've seen 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's never really going to change. And usually when you pick your option, You pick A or B. When your the timer is deteriorating. uh, you have just like really two choices, and chances are, if you played it two times, you've picked them both. So you know how they're gonna end up. Do you see what I'm saying? In Skyrim, you do have that, that linearity when it comes to the main quests and stuff, but there's potential for it to play out differently. The end result may be the same, but what I mean is there are weird things that can happen because it doesn't rely on cutscenes. It doesn't go into a cutscene like this right now and it locks you in and this will never change. These will never change. In Skyrim, when you're talking to someone, maybe you're just fucking around and you shoot an arrow at him and it disrupts the whole thing and weird things can happen, unexpected things. That changes things up a bit. Do you see what I'm saying? You can knock over a pot or walk away from his conversation and come back later. So there are all these little things in between that you're doing and can do, all this freedom in between while you're having a conversation with the main, the people in the main story, that differentiates it from past playthroughs. You see what I mean? And here it's the same. This will never change. What you're seeing here, I can reload this and it will be the exact same shit. And typically when you're picking those choices they're inquiries, so it doesn't really change anything. You're just getting more information. So that's the great thing about Skyrim, is the freedom to do anything. It's both games are detailed in the graphics, when you could see the apples and the food and the forks and shit and the lanterns and vase and stuff like that. In Skyrim, you can actually manipulate those things. You can take a single coin and drag it across the table, pick it up, and literally toss a coin to your Witcher. You can flick that coin. You can't do that in Witcher. You can't. Sure, you got these nice things on the table and around the world. Can I pick it up? Can I manipulate it? No. When it comes to junk, both of them have, about a fair amount, the same amount of like clutter stuff that you can grab. I think in here you can pick up paintings, but you know what? You can't decorate them. You can't. I think when you drop stuff, when you drop that junk, I think you just discard it and it just disappears. It goes off into nothingness. You just like either sell it or you discard it and it's gone. So you can't make use of that. In Skyrim, although I cannot pick up paintings, but you can see paintings. But if you have Jexon Positioner and you need Script Extender, you can take the painting. You can actually take it off. So there's that, but I don't use that. But let's just take the other junk like candles and candelabras and books and cups and plates and all that clutter shit. I can drop it and decorate it around my house. I can own my house. In Witcher, you didn't get your like house. It's like a vineyard until, I won't spoil anything, but in one of the DLC, you will get one, and even that is limited. You're just buying sets of things, and it just places it for you. You have no choice. You can't like put certain things where you want, and especially if you have Jexon's Positioner, you can really customize your homes. So there's that. There's the advantage that Skyrim has. So, and in Skyrim, if you choose to be, let's say, a holy man, like a priest or a monk, where you're just going from temple to temple, offering up a prayer, going on pilgrimage going up to High Hrothgar to make the pilgrimage on, every half year or something like that, or every couple months you decide to go on pilgrimage and donate to the beggars, the people in need in the game, and that's all you want to do is live a pious life in Skyrim and be a holy man. You can do that. You can't do that in Witcher 3. If I want to be in Skyrim, I want to be a spell sword, and I want to be a Witcher-like character that uses spells that are more touch spells and close range spells, casting shields like Witcher. You can do that. Just like in Witcher, you can be a Witcher which is almost like a spell sword, kind of. It's almost like an equivalent, but still there's differences. But you can essentially be like a Witcher class in Skyrim. But then now you don't want to. You can choose to be a long-range sorceress, casting fireballs somewhere, or far away, I should say, or playing a swashbuckling rogue, like with a Han Solo type personality. You inject your own personality versus one being given to you by playing Geralt, and you have your own voice, and you can play that. Whereas in Witcher, you're just limited to Witcher. You have to play that way. So you see there's so much freedom in Skyrim versus Witcher. Now, which one is better? It's really, it all comes down to your preference, which you prefer. If you favor more of just like a story, then of course, the Witcher comes out the winner, and you don't mind having to play that guy, Geralt. That's perfectly fine. So it does come down to a preference thing. For me, I prefer being able to carve my own story along the way, hence why Skyrim comes out the winner for me. But now you have to think that you played through Witcher already, and you played it for, let's say, at least a couple times already. You pretty much know how it's going to end. Why are you going to play it again and do the same exact shit and go through that same crappy combat? And just this time I'm going to pick this choice. Oh, but that's right. I know what happens. I picked that the last time. It's going to go through the same friggin' cutscenes, spending the same many hours, hundreds of hours, because a lot of it is cutscenes, with more cutscenes than playtime, for the same thing. Whereas in Skyrim, it's a virtual sandbox, like a holodeck in Star Trek, where you're living a virtual life in Skyrim, doing a multitude, nearly countless amount of things. Not as much freedom as a pen and paper D&D campaign, of course. When you have a DM, you can literally do anything because it's all words, exchange of words. All games are limited to the dimensions of the game, or whatever the parameters of the game. But for being that, Skyrim really affords a lot of freedom. So that is my review. I really enjoy. I'll say I really love both games. Let me just put it to you that way. But really, with Skyrim, I like Skyrim a lot. I really like it. Or, I'm sorry, not Skyrim, Witcher. I really like Witcher a lot. I do, but I just love Skyrim. I just think it's just a better game, especially modded. I don't know what kind of. I think with the mods in Witcher, they're just like maybe little things. I know you can turn it into first person, but I don't think it has the amount of stuff, I guess, things that you can add on to, like what Skyrim has, just because it's the nature of the game, of the format of it, how it is. And this one's all more, like cutscenes. I mean, I doubt they'll have things where it adds, like this type of, food, or, kinds of cooking pots and stuff, because you don't really manipulate those things around the world to add to the immersion of the world. So anyways, yeah, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed, and see ya.